Hi everyone, welcome to, now episode 10 of Experiments in AI. And this is the last of a series of videos where I've focused on Ollama and the Ollama API and the Ollama Python library. It's not to say I won't revisit Ollama in future Experiments in AI episode, but this is just a sort of nice, neat package of 10 videos, and I'll move on and look at some other stuff, possibly maybe some other languages or other models, who knows. But yeah, this is a nice run I've had now, and I'm going to finish it off with just an overview, if you like, of some aspects of the API and act as a sort of complement in some ways to the very first episode I did, where I was looking at certain aspects of the Ollama library. As with all episodes, if you want to follow through with the examples, and all of these are going to be posted on my GitHub page against the appropriate episode number. You will need some sort of Python Jupyter Notebook toolchain. I use Anaconda because it's all in there along with other stuff that I like to use. But you could install Python and then Jupyter Notebooks if you want to. You'll definitely need the Ollama because without it you're dead in the water, seeing as this is all about Ollama. You can read the model at the GitHub page if you want to. I found it very useful, but not everybody likes to read this stuff. You also, you will need the library for this, because we're running that to speed things up a little bit and not have to roll our sleeves up with requests and JSON stuff, because that's all abstracted away by the Ollama Python library. And you will need some models. Now, for this one, I've organised it slightly differently. We've just got 2 cells, but they're filled with everything. And this is a nice one to sort of dive into and just change sort of chunks of this and mess about with. So I didn't subdivide it for that, because of that. And there's 4 things that happen in this first one. Is it lists available models, generates a response from a model, shows the embedding, and then pulls a model. Now I've deliberately picked for this, we're going to choose certain models which aren't installed. So you can sort of see as we run this multiple times, what you get back when you try and pull a model that isn't present. We'll do it. The first one we'll deliberately make it one that's already installed. Cheating, well, not cheat, but an easy way to do that is just when I pull down the model listing, is just say, use model 0. Okay, whatever's first on the list, and it will just pick whatever is first on the list, which I probably should have checked, but do I want it to be my pirate? That's the question. Does it really matter? Probably not. So we'll see. I've got the piratey one from a previous episode has gone to the top of the stack. So, and I don't think it's going to organise these in alphabetical order or any other order. So we'll just see what happens. We're flying by the seat of our pants. Fortunately, we're only asking it what is the capital of France in this example. So I picked something simple. We should get quick results. So yeah, let us run this and see what model it picks, or whether 0, 1. So there's our list of available models. Okay. Here we can see is a slightly better, sorry about that. So we've got our list of models, and you can see there's a lot here. Now in that list of models, there's a ton of information. So as you can probably gather, what we're doing here as we go along, and notice there's no nice, neat functions here. We're just doing all of this as one long stream of consciousness. So it's a bit, in that respect, this is better for tinkering, but a lot worse for in production use. So this is great for experimental use, but definitely don't do it like this in production. Yeah, so we can go through and sort of really easily mess about with this. And so it's just literally going through and working on just for this first bit, it's just working on that model, like what is the capital of France. Now for the end bit, we're going to pull down another model, but we won't necessarily use that model here, because for convenience we're just going to use the first available model each time. Okay, but again, I'm trying to encourage you to play around with this, put different names in here like hard-code naming just for experimental purposes if you want to do that. So yeah, list the model name, and then what I did was I printed the whole response, if you saw there. So that's what the whole response looks like. That's what it looks like if we just get it to pull out purely that particular key value pair. So the model key and then that for each one. So yeah, from our list response. So yeah, so we're going through, we're getting all the models out. Also the models in list response models, and then using that that list to create this list of model names. And there's our list. So we can then pull that out in. So we've now got a list. So if we just pull out 0, model name 0, that's just the top of the list. So whatever the top of the list is. So, oh, actually no, it's Llama. Where's our priority stuff gone? Oh, it's further down. Okay, good. So it did pull out Llama 3.1 first. Yeah, we didn't go priority. Yep, so the capital of France is Paris, and then there's our embedding for that particular one. You can see there's a lot there. We'll go through in a moment exactly what embedding is. I'll put a comment in here. And then there's just the 5 values. And that's what happens down the bottom here if you pull a model, if is already available locally. Now there's a slightly different thing I've done than I've done previously weeks with pulling models, but before I do that, let's just talk a little bit about, actually I did rearrange this. Let me correct this, because that should be 3 and that should be 4. Yeah, I swapped the order of this a little bit. So when we do this, we're just sort of showing the embedding of whatever model we're working on here. Okay. So as I've said, you can go up, and if you want, you can do a similar thing to what I've got here, where we can pick a different model, plug it in. So we could rerun this. In fact, let's do that, make this a bit more interesting. So rather than pick the first one, let's just pick the second one. No, let's pick, I'll do this through by doing this. As long as I remember to change it back before I upload this. Okay, let's do that. Here we go. We'll just hard code that in now. There we go. It's a model we know. Actually, no. What am I talking about? Sorry. I don't want to do it that way. I want to. Sorry, I'm confusing myself here. I do not want to do that, because that defeats the object of the next thing I want to do. So I don't want to pick one from down here. So definitely don't pick one from down there. Let me let me just bring this up, and I want to pick another one. Let's pick something fairly small. So I'll bring this over so you can see what I'm doing here. Okay, we could do that. We haven't really tried Falcon yet, have we, in any things? Let's pick a model here. Let's pick something that I didn't do. So I want to pull one that's already installed. Oh, I'm really getting confused here, aren't I? I want to do it up here. That's better. I need to do it there. There we go. And I do need to encase that. There we go. Okay. Right, that's better. So, different model. We should find that obviously we'll get maybe slightly different wording here. Now it's going to do the same stuff again for a lot of this. So, but we will just do one of these. I won't go down all of these. I just included these so you can sort of try different models if you want to. You'll notice this is not installed, and this is important for the second half here, where I'm just showing what happens when you pull a model. So this has been broken down a little bit more than previous functions in that we're pulling the list, okay, and we're doing a similar thing that we've done earlier. So we could actually, if we wanted to, just simply get this model names list, but we're just pulling down the model names again just in case something has changed in between. Unlikely, but yeah, that's what we're doing again. And you can see here why it would be a lot more convenient if we wrapped it up in a function as well. So because we're sort of duplicating here now. The reason why we're using that is what we're going to do is we're going to just check the model we want, which is this, against our list of models before we do the pull. Now, as I've said in the past, you don't necessarily have to do that because as part of the pull function, it does that all as part of it. But it's an interesting, sub experiment to do, is to try and, okay, well, let's just pull the list down and sort of check it for ourselves before we actually issue the pull function. And therefore we can sort of differentiate between stuff easily. Most of the time when we have printed a response, it said, it was either local or we pulled it. Here, because we've done the pre-check, we can tell, oh yeah, it is actually locally, so we're not even going to attempt to do the pull. If it's not local, then yeah, we will do the pull. So what I'm going to do is rerun this now, and then we'll go down. There's our first bit. We're generating some responses here, so to our thing, and when we get in the bottom, boom, you can see here, so look, model not found locally, attempting to pull. So it's going to try and pull this model. And also something I'd not captured before is we're going to see what it actually returns here, because we can actually see the return details from this, just the way we've got this laid out. So you can see here, here's our pull response. So this is something you wouldn't have seen before. So this is actually what comes back if you do capture the pull response from the pull like we've done here. You get this success, completed none, total none, digest none. Yeah, so this is printed by us, but that's what comes back in the pull request from there. So yeah, that's just why this is broken out. So you can sort of see the steps a bit better, play around with it a little bit, wrap this up in a function if you want to. So let me just undo all of this, ready for upload. But if we go back up and look at the first half that went on here, the capital of France is Paris. Now, to our other one, you know, it might be a more involved answer, but also here you can sort of see as we're going along, I've also sort of got it to print out, you know, the whole parts of the response. So, you know, we grabbed this from the response, but we had to extract that. So that had to be extracted from within that response. So we generate a response using the generate function and feeding it the model name and the prompt. And then what we're able to do is by using the get function on our generate response, we're able to just pull out just the response key with its value. So the key value pair. And so that's how we get that. So in all the previous episodes where you've seen, you know, like a single response, if you've noticed in the text, there's been somewhere, and you can do this in lots of different ways as well, just because of the way that response is structured. You know, there's lots of interesting ways you can navigate through the key value pairs. And this is one way. And so it's interesting to see how you could pull that out, but also how you might use it to maybe pull out other information in here. Maybe, you know, I was saying in a previous episode about the durations in here as well. So maybe you want to pull out that information rather than doing it in situ as part of the code by using the time and the date time module. And there's some other contextual stuff here as well that you might be curious about. There's date stamps, there's the model that was used, those sort of things. And then for this, you can see all the embedding. Now you might think, well, what is an embedding? So here, there's just a summary of what an embedding is, if you're curious. So they're numerical vector representations of data translated into machine understandable format. And that can be useful if you're really starting to get under the bonnet of these LLMs and really starting to understand, you know, the fundamental relationships that exist. Yeah. So, yeah. For the curious, this sort of episode is really... And I thought it was a good one to finish off with. So, yeah, you can just mess about with this to your heart's content. Try other things. Now, one thing I wanted to finish up with, and hopefully this will run pretty fast. Again, it's just like a monolith function here. Well, I say monolith. We've got two functions. So here we have got we've got analyze sentiment and analyze detailed sentiment. And then it's going to go through and for each of the models, where are they? There, just two. It's going to run a sentiment analysis on a particular text snippet. And it's going to do that for 6 text snippets. And one is just literally asking it to analyze the sentiment. And the other, so to do that, we're doing it in the prompt. We're saying classify the sentiment of the following text as positive, negative, or neutral. And then we're giving it the text. So we do that 6 times, one for each of the texts. And then that's done twice. So 2 times 6, because we're doing 2 models. Also, we're doing it again with a slightly reworded prompt. Still the text actually at the end. So we do need the text snippet there with the the text we want to analyze the sentiment. But here we're saying classify the sentiment of the following text with enhanced detail. And then we're sort of giving it an example of some of the things we might like to see, like very positive, slightly negative, neutral. Not everything, but some of the things. So let's run that and see how well it does with these small models. So these are very, well, I say very small. Let's have a look. Tiny Llama is, where is it on the list? There, so 1 billion parameters. File size is 637 meg, and I think, is it when did I pick that one? Because one of these is pretty small. So 0.6 billion, and that is a Qwen 3 model. So where's that gone? Is it still there? Is it going to pull it down? Why can I not see it there? That's odd. Oh, there it is. Qwen 2. Did I make a mistake there? Qwen 2.5. I did want to really do a tiny one. Let's have a look. I know what I did. I made an assumption here. So what we will do, there it is. Qwen 3, 0.6 billion model. Yeah, there we go. So I'm actually going to do this. Let's do this manually. Yeah, I inadvertently deleted that. So let's do Ollama. Let's try pull from here. So we can pull from here as well, which I'm just going to do. So this is how you get the models down if you don't want to, do it in coding. If you just want to pre-pull everything. You can also do Ollama run Qwen 3, and then what it will do is it'll check if the model's there. If it isn't, it'll pull it. If it is there, then it'll go into the CLI, the command line interface for this. And I'll probably show you that quickly. This episode I always plan to be a little bit seat of my pants, just to tie up a few loose ends. So that's why it's a little bit scrappy. And so I could sort of go, oh yeah, I should really talk about that. Actually, I don't think I mentioned that. I have looked at pulling models and running them in previous episodes of other series, which, like I said, I think in another episode I'll include links to those in the description, along with the link to the GitHub page. So that's now pulled. So if I was to do another Ollama list, so there we go. Where is it? So the top there, see, 0.6 billion. Now the other thing I could have done is similar sort of thing. If I'd done run here and it hadn't have been present, it would have pulled and then opened the CLI. As it's already there, it'll just dump me in the CLI. So, and I can use this in a sort of, so I can do, what is the capital of France? And this is a thinking model as well. So yeah, there we go. So, like that. So you can play around with this. Just in, you don't have to necessarily do any coding as such. It just makes it a little bit easier, I find, when you're experimenting, because you can sort of do things like loops and loop the same question. So let us now run this, and we'll see how it does. Okay, so we're doing some sentiment analysis using Tiny Llama. Yeah. Okay. So now detailed sentiment analysis. So for that, all we did was slightly modify the prompt. So for our word we're analysing the sentiment for, because we've got, we're telling it classify the sentiment on the following text. We've been a little bit more, I suppose, descriptive about what sort of things we would like to see in the enhanced detail, but not everything. So we're trying to see, is it picking that up? And, although we don't specifically list, say, very negative or slightly positive as an option, it, works that out. Oh, yeah, that could be an option based on that. So sentiment slightly negative. Did we give that as a... Yeah, it did. So again, just looking for maybe where it's taking the hint. Yeah. And so with the thinking model as well, the reason why I chose the thinking model is it's interesting to see how that handles sentiment analysis as well. With both the like regular wording and then the slightly enhanced detail version as well. So two small models. One was not a thinking model. One is a thinking model by default. Some of these thinking models are structured in such a way that you have to sort of turn on thinking by issuing a system command as well. So, or you can do it, I suppose, through the model file if you want to do it that way. So you can see it sort of working through here, thinking its way through. Very negative sentiment. Now, did I give it very negative as a clue? No. So you can sort of see what's sort of going on there, hopefully. Yeah, script sent to the prompts, the Ollama to classify sentiment. It received JSON responses and extracted sentiment classification. This demonstrates how to programmatically interact with them. Now expand upon this to automate more complex things. Yeah, and you'll probably notice with this, did we? Yeah, the JSON, so the handling of the JSON, the nice thing with this is the handling of the JSON responses, and I probably need to clarify that. The beauty of the using the Ollama library is when the responses come back, they come back as a sort of certain class of object, which some people might find easier to deal with, and then you don't have to feed it, because if you're doing this the hard way, so to speak, using just the request library, you then have to take that request that comes back and feed it through some JSON stuff using the JSON library. With this, the way this comes back through the abstraction of the Ollama library is that it sort of takes care of all of that for you. So yeah, so what's going on there? So I probably might clarify that note at the bottom, or take it out entirely, maybe, I don't know. Yeah. So hopefully in this final episode, if it was clear, you'll sort of get an idea how you can sort of play around with some of the responses, like extract certain parts of the responses by using the library's sort of own built-in functions that are there, and you haven't got to rely on any sort of JSON unpleasantness going on in there. Although we did have this JSON library loaded up, and there was a reason for that, and I've got to find, or did that become surplus to requirements after I made some changes? It may have. I think was there one place where I actually ended up using it? Let me just, it's probably not the best way to do this, but I think at some point I may have had some other code in here, and I decided to slightly simplify this. I think it actually does it not need it? Because the library handles all of that. Yeah. That's done. Cool. Probably need to put something like done here as well, so you know it's finished. So yeah, so that was a hangover for some previous code actually I had there. That's something you have to be careful of when you're working in this. Is sometimes you'll if I'm working in Spider, the nice thing is that it tells you if you don't use a particular library. This doesn't do this in Notebook, so it's easy to sort of leave stuff behind by accident. I'm surprised I didn't leave more junk behind actually when I'm doing this. So there we have it. Hopefully you've enjoyed this sort of 10 episode run. I'll include a link here to the GitHub for this, so you can sort of play around, clean this up a bit. Like I said, it's a little bit patchy by design, because I wanted to sort of encourage on this episode people sort of dive in and just expand out on this a little bit more as a sort of single chunk, so you wouldn't have to worry too much about fixing functions further up, because everything's just in the same Notebook window, or cell should I say. Thanks once again for watching. Bye for now, and I will catch you in a future episode.